Hello and welcome to Finextra. I'm Thea George and I'm here with Jim Whitehurst of Red Hat. We're talking about the impact of open source on the financial sector. Jim, thank you for joining me.
Thea, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So Jim, what has open source traditionally meant to the financial sector? How is that different today? And how involved are financial institutions in open source communities?
Financial service institutions were actually the first adopters of Linux, the open source operating system. And it really started with a couple of investment banks who recognized that if they built Linux-based trading platforms, they could actually trade faster than the platforms that existed before. And as soon as the first couple of banks adopted Linux running x86 for their architectures, they started to take share from other banks. And as they did that, other banks were forced to move to Linux-based architectures. And because of that, very, very quickly, the investment banking side of financial services companies were all Linux very, very quickly. From that, it's built over time more broadly across all major commercial banks as well and most major stock exchanges. What's happened more recently in the last several years is open source has gone from not just being about high performance at that kind of deep infrastructure layer, but really driving innovation. As Google and Facebook start pushing all of their software out into open source, things like cloud computing, things like mobile, things like big data are all happening first in open source. And as financial services companies are looking to really be on the bleeding edge of serving customers better by leveraging things like big data and cloud technologies, they really have to build open source practices. So now it's not just kind of a viable alternative or something just for the trading platforms, it's really part of mission critical workloads and really a default choice for financial institutions now.
So what do you think financial services firms can learn about digital and cultural transformation from other industries?
Well, one of the issues that financial services companies have is the need for really high security and really high reliability, which means historically they've been very, very slow to change and built very, very mission critical type of structures, but ones that weren't really built for change. They now have to change, and they actually are learning quite a bit from industries that have built change for longer periods of time. So just a couple examples. In travel, as people have started expecting a richer experience and deciding kind of what hotels are going to stay in, they don't just want to see a price, they want to see pictures of the property and they want to see video of rooms and 360-degree views. So Amadeus, which does much of the booking and working with airlines and hotels, is building whole new cloud-based platforms which can actually ingest massive amounts of information about hotels, so when you go to book, you can actually get a much different experience than just seeing the price around a hotel. Completely built on the same platform that many banks are now starting to use to build their systems of engagement. Or Paddy Power Betfair, building an entire new cloud-based infrastructure on which it's putting really almost a financial services type of transaction system with, in many ways, a larger number of transactions than the average bank performs every day. 5 years ago, you would have said, well, we can't scale like that. We have to have IBM mainframes to do that. Companies like Paddy Power Betfair are showing that you can actually do that in more of a Google-esque cloud model. And so we're seeing, again, that same technology stack being used now by several banks in some of their core platforms. So there are a number of examples of these kind of innovations that are now driving their way back into the financial services industry.
So how do you think innovations like containers and cloud will impact financial services firms, and how well do you think they're doing in leveraging those today?
Financial services institutions are some of our largest early adopters of some of the cloud technologies and containers especially. So containers is a technology, I think the best way to describe it is it's like building an app for an iPhone. It's much easier to develop an app for an iPhone, and it's much easier to distribute it. So on a desktop, people maybe had 4 or 5 applications, and on your iPhone, you often have many dozens of applications. We're starting to see that happen in the enterprise because with containers, it's so quick and easy to develop and deploy applications that we're seeing a huge ramp in the capability of financial institutions to develop applications. On the other side, we're seeing a significant drive towards needing to do that because you have competitors that are coming in like PayPal and others with a very, very different model. So if we look, we have banks like BBVA, which is doing a tremendous amount around going full cloud stack, Santander is another great example of a bank that's really kind of gone all in on building a container-based platform. Across the board, across the industry, virtually every major financial service institutions we're working with is basically setting a standard around containers and expecting large percentages of their platforms or applications to be built on containers. In fact, I was talking to one of the largest financial institutions this morning, and they have a target to have over 40% of their applications containerized literally in 12 months.
Jim, thank you. This has been great.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching.